I'm out fishing at Lake Anna, and it's a early November afternoon. The fishing is surprisingly tough today. And one thing I always do, actually even if the fishing is not tough, is I gravitate to big boathouses like that. No matter where you go in the country, there are always some fish around them. It's kind of a cheat code for those of us who aren't great fishermen. Gravitate to boat docks, there's always going to be some fish on it. And obviously the best fish are not always underneath it, but oftentimes on a tough bluebird sky day like today, they're going to be way back underneath it. So you need to skip a bait underneath. Now you've seen guys like Gerald Swindle, Andy Montgomery. They can skip anything. You can give them an old rusty wrench and they could skip it underneath. They could skip a big mop jig, anything. I'm not that coordinated. I struggle with fishing, and most of you are probably not as good as Gerald Swindle or Andy Montgomery or guys like that either. So I kind of want to give you a guide to the uncoordinated person's guide to skipping under boat docks. Some starter things that you can do to make sure that you put a bait where the sun doesn't shine. Number one bait you can use, Senko, Texas rig, wacky rigged. I use a wacky rig more than anything under docks. It skips super far, catches fish everywhere you go. You can go through a bunch of them in a day. They don't cost that much. And you're going to catch some fish. Get some green pumpkin, some watermelon. This is a laminate color. Whatever the appropriate color is for your body of water, and be ready to go. It skips underneath anything, and you can, with just about 10 minutes of practice, really be good at doing that. Now, there are times when they're not going to eat that, or you need something a little more weedless. This is kind of an old school deal. This is a Charlie Brewer slider head. And it's one of the original finesse techniques. Get some of these. I put a Zoom Centipede on the back. You could put any centipede. Again, watermelon, green pumpkin, June bug, whatever the best color is for the body of water you're fishing. It spirals as it goes down. There are days when they definitely prefer that over the Senko. And you just want to have them both ready to go, because you want to see, especially if you're going to be around heavier cover, that this might be the right option. Now, I recommend that if you've never done it before, you do start off with spinning gear. Get a 6.5, maybe a 7-foot rod, depending on your height. You can see braid with a fluorocarbon leader. For some of you, that may be tough. You can go straight mono to start if you want to, or straight fluoro, or even straight braid under relatively stained or dirty water conditions. Find the line that works best for you and go with it. But eventually you're going to want to graduate to bait casting gear, both because it has more hauling power to get big fish out from under boat docks, and also because it enables you to use certain lures. And the two lures that I've found that skip the best, first one, believe it or not, is a chatterbait. Find the one you like. It could be, this is the Phenix, you can use the Jackhammer, any of those work. And it skips like a charm. They're relatively weedless. They pull out fish and they trigger bites because they're just irritating when they get back under there. Now, one thing you're going to want to do, in my opinion, is you're not going to want to use a trailer with a lot of appendages, because as you're a beginner, that's going to catch on the water. My favorite trailer, Reaction Innovation Skinny Dipper, to match whatever your particular forage base is or the chatterbait that you're using. I bite off the head. I use about this much. You can use it a little shorter if you want, if it starts to get ripped. Glue it in place. In fact, you'll want to have super glue in the boat when you're skipping, simply because things tend to come off the hook under the force of the skip. Finally, one last lure that I think is a great one for a beginner and shows them something different is this rigged Megabass Magdraft. This is the albino color. This is sort of, to me, a starter color, but any shad color that appeals to you. If you're on a lake with perch, you obviously can go to a perch or a bluegill color too. This lure skips a mile. And again, you can do it on fluorocarbon, mono, braid, whatever you're most comfortable with. Now, I do want to give you some tips. As you'll see, this has a treble hook underneath it. It does catch on things. Remember, please be respectful of dock owners. They can make our lives very difficult, and we don't want to put hooks in any swimmer's feet or anything like that, or leave them in props. Don't throw something like this. First of all, it's $12 or $14, but you don't want to damage someone's property, so don't throw something, particularly with a treble hook, until you're pretty good at skipping. One other thing that I failed to mention, when you practice, don't practice with a big gnarly boathouse like that. Practice out in the open water until you get the motion down. It's a fairly simple motion. You want to come underhand, and it's like skipping a flat rock. It's really a very simple thing to do once you've done it a couple times, but practice out in open water and you'll have a lot less stress at getting the proper motion down. One final equipment tip: if you are going to use a bait casting reel and you're having trouble, I strongly recommend one of the DC reels from Shimano. These are digitally controlled. They have a computer built in. They're really hard to backlash. It's worth the extra money. I like it for throwing light baits into the wind in general, but it's particularly worthwhile if you're going to be skipping a bait. So go out, practice, and I guarantee this is what I call my cheat code. You don't have to be super coordinated to do it. I'm living proof of that. Go out and skip some baits under docks and you will catch more bass.